Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a much warmer pattern in parts of the eastern United States and a chillier one out in the western United States. That's going to be taking place in the second half of the video. So we're going to dedicate the first part of the video to talking about that tropical development off the east coast in parts of the northern Atlantic, and that currently is Invest 90L, might be our first subtropical or tropical storm and our first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that in the beginning of the video, and we'll also be reviewing all that flooding that we saw in parts of Louisiana and Texas and kind of giving you a recap of what happened there. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. As you can see, we have some wind advisories out into Southern California and also in the western half of the state especially. We have a few more wind advisories scattered throughout the Southwest, as well as a larger area of red flag warnings from California to Colorado. We have some freeze warnings in that dark blue shade for parts of Nevada and California, as well as winter weather advisories in parts of California, Idaho, and Montana, with a few winter storm warnings in northwestern Montana. We also have a few flood watches still up in parts of the central Gulf states, so from Louisiana all the way up through Texas, Oklahoma, and into Arkansas. And then we also have a couple of wind advisories through parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. Yesterday we had a high temperature in Death Valley, California, where they got up to 107 degrees Fahrenheit, with a low temperature in 11 miles southwest of Port Angeles, Washington, where they got down to 21 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest rainfall report was in Victoria, Texas, where they got 7.85 inches of rain, and the highest snowfall report was 2 miles northeast of Leadville, Colorado, where they got 1.1 inches of reported snowfall. So here is a quick look at the amount of precipitation that we saw. So these are some of the highest reports that we saw out of both Texas and Louisiana. Louisiana is on the top left, and Texas is in the bottom left. And then on the right hand side of your screen, you can see the map of all of the precipitation kind of just mapped out and plotted out on this map right here. So you can see that we have many of these areas over the past 7 days that have received total rainfall amounts that have been over 10 inches, and even in some areas as much as 22 or more inches of rainfall. So there has been some really high amounts of rainfall that have been reported in many areas, especially in southern Louisiana and southeastern Texas, especially along the coast. I've seen again very high amounts of rainfall, which has led to a lot of flooding, unfortunately. So this came mainly because we had a big high pressure in the southeast. We also had some rising warm air in the southwest and into the Four Corners, and that zone in between both of those areas where we had that high pressure of chillier air and that warm air to the west created a lot of thunderstorms. And those thunderstorms, even though it happened over multiple days, 3-4 days, they added up really, and we saw multiple days on end with just rain and rain and rain and rain in many of these areas. So that's what really caused most of that flooding. It's just that it was a continued time of persistent rainfall that really did not go away. And you can see a couple of these report 21.39 inches of rainfall in South Lake Charles, so that's a lot of rain. Also Hillbrant Bayou, and that's offshore of Texas there. They got 18.68 inches, 16.69, 16.58. So these are some really high amounts of rainfall, and you can definitely see how that could cause easily some flooding in many of those areas. Let's go on to that tropical storm and that tropical development. As you can see, we do have this is the satellite image of this, and you can see that we have in that red circle, that is your Invest 90L, and that is what's becoming the big story out in the Atlantic, because it'll be our first storm of the season. It is our first Invest and storm that we're tracking, and it could potentially become our first named storm. If you look at the actual 5-day outlook from the National Hurricane Center, you can see how this is where it is currently. So it's right in the middle of the Atlantic, and then eventually it will be heading southwestward, right like this, into just north of Bermuda, and then eventually it should go back up to the north. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting track and a little bit of an interesting storm to watch, because it will be taking a very peculiar type of track here. They did upgrade this yesterday when I made my community post. I believe it had about a 60% chance, I believe, of developing. I made a community post yesterday talking about this, and I had a lot more details in that post if you want to go check it out on my YouTube channel. But that now has been upgraded to a 90% chance within the next 5 days. So they're really going strong with this, and I think this does have a fairly decent and good shot of developing over the next few days. And if we look at the model track guidance, you can see that we actually do expect this to go again south and pretty much just straight westward, and then make a sharp turn to the northeast and go out to sea. So it looks like Bermuda really going to catch a break here, because if you look at this is where Bermuda is right here, and it comes very, very close, and then eventually it makes that sharp turn to the northeast. So Bermuda is really gonna do quite well with this. They're really not gonna feel too many impacts, because it's gonna graze right to your north, so you're barely gonna feel anything from it. Maybe a little bit of chilly air along with it, but other than that, shouldn't be too many impacts to any islands or any land here. Here's the intensity, and you can see currently we are actually experiencing winds that are at tropical storm force, but we don't have all of the characteristics of a tropical storm, so it is still extra tropical. Might strengthen over the next 24 to 48 hours. Couple models keep this going strong at a tropical storm strength, but most models have this dipping down into a tropical depression or subtropical type of storm. And that is the general idea with this. If you're wondering why that's happening, it's because, as you can see here, we do have really warm waters, especially along the Gulf Stream, which is right here. And you can see that area of kind of yellow and orange. That's the Gulf Stream right there. And that storm is originating in waters that are about 21 to, I'd say, 24 degrees Celsius, which is around 72 to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is fairly good waters. It's not prime, of course, but it still does have decent waters to develop in, so nothing too shabby there. Let's start moving on to the actual temperatures and the warmer pattern that we're going to be seeing in parts of the eastern and central United States, and the chillier pattern that we're going to be seeing out in the west. So today we have that, or tomorrow we have that snowstorm out in parts of Montana and Idaho, especially in higher elevations. So that's going to keep you guys down into the 30s. These are the high temperatures, by the way. So low temperatures much chillier than this. We're also going to be dealing with a little bit of snow into northern Nevada and eastern California. You guys will stick into the mid 40s or even into the 30s in some parts of Nevada and California. So chilly out in the west, but then you can see the complete opposite into the central and eastern United States. You can see this big area of 85 plus degree temperatures. When you're getting into that dark red color, that's where you're above 85 degrees. When you get into this grayish color, which you can see in some of these areas right there, that's where you're getting in above 100 or above 90 degrees. And then once you're into the white colors, pretty much that very light gray, that's where you're above 100 degrees. So you're going to start to see more of those gray shades pop up on the map, especially in the southeast, and that's going to indicate that we're going to have some much warmer temperatures, and really warm temperatures for this time of year. So by Saturday of this week, it's really starting to heat up in parts of the southeast and the mid-Atlantic, and even into the Tennessee Valley. So we're dealing with temperatures that are up into the 90s, all the way as far north as New Jersey and Pennsylvania there. So it's getting fairly far to the north with those 90 plus degree temperatures. If we look at for Sunday, even warmer. Now we have 90 plus degree temperatures, maybe reaching all the way up into New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and then all the way as far south as Florida and the southeast. So it's going to be pretty much along the east coast, and then maybe going into the Tennessee Valley as well, where we're going to be dealing with the warmest of temperatures. We might cool down if you live in the northern plains a little bit more. Also, still chilly in parts of the northwest, especially where in parts of Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, still dealing with some temperatures, high temperatures in the 40s. So, and also in the mid 30s. So that is fairly chilly, especially considering that by this point that would be the 23rd of May. So really not feeling like late May here in those areas. It's feeling more like late March, I would say, in many of those regions. So not really too pleasant of a pattern if you live in the western United States, but it is very nice if you live in parts of the central and eastern United States, where we're going to be dealing with some nice warm temperatures in those areas. Here would be by Monday, and it's really heating up in parts of the southeast. So now we're starting to approach the upper 90s in parts of Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, Alabama as well. That's where you're starting to get into more of a light gray color, maybe even hitting the triple digits in a couple of these regions. Here to be by Tuesday. even warmer in parts of the southeast, and you can see those 95 plus degree temperatures expanding all throughout parts of the southeast. If we go through Wednesday of next week, you can see that we have 90-degree temperatures, which are now going all the way up into Maine. So it's every single time that we get a little bit more of a heat wave, or a little bit more of a push of warm air, it starts to push a little bit further to the north. So we started off with the 90-degree temperatures hitting maybe into New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Now in the next day, it went up to Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Now it's going up potentially into southernmost Maine. So every single day, as we move through the springtime and even into early summer, you will start to see the gradual rising of those temperatures, and we're going to see those averages start to go up into the 80s and 90s in most of these areas. We could be approaching a few triple digits here if you live in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, especially if you live away from the coast. I feel like if you're probably around 5 miles or less from the coast, you'll probably be fine with this. You'll probably be in the 80s. But if you're just far enough out where you're not being impacted by that sea breeze, it looks like you could actually be into the mid and upper 90s, maybe even into a couple areas where you're getting into the triple digits. So really, really warm temperatures here. If we look at Thursday of next week, a little bit chillier. We're actually going to get a break here if you live in the eastern United States with this chillier air mass, which is going to be plunging into the northeast over the next couple of days and the next couple of frames here. So this would be by Thursday the 27th. You can see that chillier air starting to move in, and then we're dealing with still 90 plus degree temperatures in the southeast, something that you're really going to have to get used to if you live there, because it doesn't look like this pattern is going away anytime soon. And then by Friday, still moderate temperatures over many of these areas. We have 80s and mid 80s that are going all the way up into Minnesota, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, so fairly far to the north, and those 90, maybe even 100-degree plus temperatures in parts of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, potentially reaching up into the Carolinas as well. If we look at the 6 to 10 day outlook, you can see that we are expecting below normal temperatures from the 25th through the 29th in parts of the northwest, as well as some above normal temperatures if you live in the central and eastern United States, and especially so in parts of the southeastern United States and the mid-Atlantic, where it looks like we have the highest chances and percentages to actually be above normal in those areas. If we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, you can see that we have below normal in parts of the northern plains and above normal along the west coast, and then also into the eastern United States. And still the area of most above normal temperatures is in the mid-Atlantic and the southeast. So it looks like those areas really going to stay in the bullseye of these above normal temperatures, and the below normal temperatures probably are going to stick further into the western United States, and especially in regions like the northern Rockies and potentially the northern plains, and parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota is where it could get a little bit chillier into the next couple of weeks, but probably by the end of the month. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so I can keep you updated, and so you can get the updates for when I do actually post a video. And that's going to wrap it up for today's video. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.